The phrase contextualizing the Old Testament and its deities refers to understanding the broader historical, cultural, and religious backdrop against which the deities of the Old Testament are presented. This involves examining how the text fits into the ancient Near Eastern world and how its portrayal of God or gods reflects, diverges from, or interacts with the beliefs of surrounding cultures. Contextualizing these elements is crucial for gaining a richer understanding of the Old Testament, as it allows readers to appreciate the complex tapestry of religious thought during that era. It helps to clarify the distinct features of the biblical narrative and its religious innovations, which stand out against the polytheistic backdrop of its time. One specific example is the comparison between Yahweh and the Canaanite god Baal. The Old Testament frequently contrasts these two, highlighting Yahweh's supremacy and uniqueness. Understanding that Israel was surrounded by Canaanite culture helps explain why these texts were so concerned with defining and defending Israelite monotheism. Another example is the Enuma Elish, a Babylonian creation myth. By comparing it with the Genesis creation story, we can see both shared motifs and divergent theological points. Genesis emphasizes a single, sovereign creator, whereas the Enuma Elish involves a pantheon of gods, offering insights into the cultural dialogue between these societies. Scholars and theologians assert that contextualizing provides a more nuanced reading of the Old Testament, allowing one to see how its authors were influenced by, yet often critical of, their contemporaneous pagan cultures. However, challenges arise from fundamentalist perspectives that view these texts as wholly unique or divinely dictated without external influence. Such views may resist integrating historical and cultural analysis into biblical interpretation. Additionally, some academics argue that overemphasizing external influences might detract from the distinctiveness of the biblical tradition. The process of contextualization influences other aspects of this topic by contributing to interreligious comparisons and understanding the development of monotheism. It aids in constructing timelines that show the religious evolution from polytheism to the singular focus on Yahweh. This approach helps demystify the relationship between different religious traditions and emphasizes the dynamic interplay between various ancient cultures. It also provides a framework for analyzing how the distinct religious identity of the Israelites was shaped in response to and in conversation with their regional environment, a vital point for comparative religious studies. The origins and historical context of Old Testament gods serves as a foundational element in understanding the gods of the Old Testament, primarily Yahweh, within the cultural and historical tapestry of the ancient Near East. This exploration involves examining how ancient Israelite religion developed amidst surrounding cultures, impacting their perceptions and depictions of deity figures. During the first millennium BCE, the religious landscape was a complex mosaic of beliefs, with Yahweh initially being one of many gods worshipped within a polytheistic framework. Over time, particularly during the Babylonian Exile, these beliefs crystallized into a more monotheistic tradition, which significantly influenced the narrative and theological direction of the Old Testament. Understanding the historical context of these deities is crucial for a comprehensive exploration of the Old Testament's spiritual narratives and doctrines. It sheds light on the evolution of religious thought and contributes to comparative religion studies by allowing us to see commonalities and distinctions among neighboring cultures and their mythologies. For instance, examining the influence of Canaanite deities like El and Baal reveals how their attributes were either assimilated or rejected within Israelite theology, affecting how God's nature and actions were interpreted by biblical authors. In practice, this knowledge offers insights into the broader spiritual dynamics of the ancient world and provides a richer interpretive framework for modern theological studies. Additionally, it encourages interfaith dialogue by highlighting shared roots and varying evolutions of religious thought across cultures. Scholars like Mark S. Smith and William G. Dever provide supportive scholarly opinions, arguing that these early Israelite beliefs were heavily shaped by surrounding cultures, which can be seen, for instance, in the Ugaritic texts that reveal parallels between Canaanite and Israelite religions. However, this subject is not without controversy. Some view the discussion of polytheistic origins as potentially undermining the monotheistic integrity of Jewish and Christian beliefs, leading to the challenge of reconciling archaeological findings with theological traditions. Others argue that this broader context is essential for understanding the transformative journey towards monotheism. Considering these historical nuances enhances our grasp of how these ancient religious ideas and structures connect with and have influenced contemporary religious beliefs and practices. By recognizing these origins and developments, we gain deeper insights into the longevity and adaptability of spiritual narratives through time. These connections are integral to appreciating the complex religious tapestry of the Old Testament, as well as understanding its enduring legacy in modern faiths. The influence of neighboring cultures on Old Testament religions is a significant study area when comparing religions through timelines. This concept refers to how the religious beliefs and practices of the Israelites, as documented in the Old Testament, were shaped by interactions with surrounding cultures, such as the Canaanites, Egyptians, Babylonians, and Persians. These interactions were not merely incidental, but rather central to understanding the evolution of religious thought and practice in ancient Israel. The significance of this influence lies in its ability to provide context and depth to the Old Testament narratives. It offers insights into how the Israelites adapted, or resisted elements from neighboring cultures, contributing to the unique yet interconnected development of their religious identity. By studying these influences, we gain a better understanding of the historical and cultural dynamics at play, enriching our comprehension of the Old Testament as a document of its time. A specific example is the Babylonian Exile, during which Israelite leaders and intellectuals were exposed to Mesopotamian religious ideas. This period significantly impacted Jewish theology, prompting a renewed focus on monotheism and written scripture. The creation story in Genesis, for instance, bears resemblance to the Babylonian Enuma Elish, suggesting a shared Mesopotamian cultural heritage infused with unique Hebrew theological interpretations. Another example is the adoption of the religious calendar, which was influenced by the agricultural cycles common in Canaanite practices, with major festivals such as Passover and Sukkot reflecting an agricultural basis. Support for the influence of neighboring cultures comes from biblical scholarship that emphasizes cultural exchange as a driver of religious evolution. This perspective highlights the dynamic nature of religion as a living, adapting entity. However, this view is not without challenges. Some traditionalists argue that it downplays the divinely revealed and unique character of the Old Testament by attributing too much to external influences. These external influences are intricately connected to and influence other aspects of Old Testament religions, such as prophetic writings, law codes, and temple practices. By appreciating the external cultural impacts, we can better understand how the Israelites saw themselves in relation to other peoples, and how this self-perception evolved. This point also enhances our understanding of the broader religious landscape of the ancient Near East, illustrating the complex interplay between faith, culture, and politics that shaped religious development across timelines. The concept of comparative analysis of monotheism versus polytheism in the ancient Near East involves examining the distinct characteristics, beliefs, and practices related to the belief in one God versus multiple gods. Monotheism, such as that practiced in ancient Israel, fundamentally focuses on the worship of a singular, all-powerful deity. In contrast, polytheism, as seen in regions like Mesopotamia or Egypt, involves the worship of multiple gods, each often associated with specific aspects of life or nature. Exploring this subject is crucial for understanding the religious evolution in the ancient Near East. It sheds light on how different cultures influenced each other and how religious beliefs shaped societal structures, laws, and cultural practices. For instance, the transition from polytheism to monotheism in ancient Israel marked a significant shift, affecting not only religious practices but also legal and moral frameworks. This transition can be seen in the Hebrew Bible, where earlier texts reveal traces of polytheistic beliefs that gradually give way to strict monotheism. A real-world application of this comparative analysis is evident in the interaction between ancient Israel and neighboring polytheistic cultures. The story of the Exodus, for example, represents a theological triumph of the monotheistic God of Israel over the gods of Egypt. Another example is the syncretism evident in certain periods of Israelite history, where external polytheistic influences, such as Canaanite deities, crept into the fringes of Hebrew worship, illustrating the dynamic interplay between monotheistic and polytheistic traditions. Scholars like Karen Armstrong have argued that monotheism provided a more universal moral framework, which contributed to the social cohesion and distinct identity of Israel. Conversely, some scholars posit that polytheism allowed for a more inclusive and flexible approach to spirituality, accommodating a broader spectrum of divine representations and human experiences. However, the analysis of monotheism versus polytheism is not without controversy. Some academics debate the purity of early monotheism in Israel, suggesting that what we perceive as strict monotheism evolved over time and was influenced by political and cultural changes. Further, detractors of monotheism argue that it promoted exclusivity and conflict, as evidenced in the biblical narratives of conquest. This point intricately ties into other aspects of the main topic by highlighting how religious ideologies were not isolated, but rather interacting continuously with cultural, political, and historical developments. Understanding these interactions enriches our perspective of theological evolution and the profound impact of ancient religions on subsequent religious and cultural paradigms.